On this episode of Outside of the Box, Christine previews the Round 1 NHRL event with several of the competitors.
This February field is incredibly stacked, so it won't be easy by any means.
If I qualify, that's great. I'm there to have fun. Honestly, it's really what it's all about.
I had no questions in my head what was going to happen when I went up against Ares. I learned so much from that event.
I have very thick armor, but it's quite small as a 30-pounder. It's got kind of heavyweight armor. I think I can take a few hits, so take a hit, throw them around, take a hit, throw them around. It's pretty quick.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first official episode of the year for Outside of the Box, which is previewing the February Round 1 NHRL event coming up. And so lots of robots, lots of things to talk about. And I thought for this episode, it would be nice to have some folks on who have not been on the show before. So first off, to talk about a robot in the 3-pound division, which is Anubis, is Anthony, and I'm so excited to have them on the show.
Hello, I'm Anthony. My robot is Anubis. It's a 4-wheel drive vert, very original, I know. But what's a little bit different about this bot is my weapon. I have a kind of hybrid beater bar and Drisk weapon. So on one side you have a beater bar for very consistent great energy transfer, and on the other side you have these two little teeth that have super low surface area, and so you get a ton of impacting pressure, and they just rip through TPU, UHMW, and so I found it to be very effective.
Well, that's good. I mean, I think that, obviously the idea when you have a robot with a weapon like that is that you want it to be able to do damage. Tell me about the kind of the getting that robot to this point, here, because I don't know, have you run this robot before?
I have. So Anubis is technically my first bot. I started back in February of last year. I did a version 1 that was suspiciously similar to a Peter Bar, will say. But around September of last year, I did a full redesign, and that's when I came up with this Peter Bar dress. So I've been running it since then. I went to September NHRL, a couple G Scroll events, and a couple other smaller events. But this year, I've done a little bit of a design update for that, just continuing to improve, try to solve some issues. One of the huge issues that I had was my weapon broke quite a few times. Of the 4 weapons that I got, they each broke at least once. One broke 3 times, but it was welded back together. And so hopefully this these new weapons will hold together.
I certainly hope so. That's it's always nice when your robot works the way that you're intending it to. Now, you mentioned about doing a redesign and everything kind of based off of this design that maybe wasn't as original and you've done a lot to it. And I know that looking back at some other folks who came in with a good idea and really worked at it and made it just lights out within a very short period of time. I mean, when you look at Julian and Dima and what they were able to do last year, are you hoping to make that kind of an impact this year? I mean, I don't know if that's a goal or you're just oh, that would be really nice if that happened.
That's definitely a goal. I'm putting everything I can into making this bot as good as it possibly can be. I'm trying super hard for dumpsters, events, wins, even just a finals placement I would be happy with. But this February field is incredibly stacked, so it won't be easy by any means.
It seems like it almost never is anymore, unfortunately. Now I have to ask, about the name and coming up with the idea of Anubis, because I many that know me know that I'm a huge fan of 1999's The Mummy movie. And so seeing the name Anubis, I'm like, that's so cool because I love, like, Egyptian history and everything else like that. What was your reasoning for going with that as the name?
So there were kind of two reasons. Originally, the working name of the bot was Wizard. I wanted to do like a cool wizard theme, but I was looking at it in CAD from the side view, and the ears and the weapon shape, it just kind of looked like a jackal. And so I was like, Anubis would be a pretty cool name. On the other hand, I was like, I really want to name all my bots after stands from the show called JoJo. And conveniently, there's a stand in JoJo Part 3 called Anubis. So this perfect name.
That's awesome. I think it's always important to like come up with something that feels like connected for you, something like that. That's really cool. Now, are there any robots in particular in the 3 pound field in this event that you're either like, oh, it would be really cool to fight against them, or maybe somebody that you're hoping to avoid?
Yeah, I mean, the big ones are obviously Eruption, Clyde, Chainsaw Kitty's going to be there, Caldera. Um, Cold Snap is coming out from the Midwest. Massive, massive, crazy hard hitting undercutter. I fought Eruption at the December G Scroll event, and I lost very quickly, discovering failure modes that I didn't know existed. So I would like to fight him. I would like it to be in finals rather than my elimination round. Uh, uh, I would like to avoid Clyde. I think that's kind of everyone's hope. Uh, I'm trying out some fireproofing methods that I think will hold up, but I mean, so much of these beetle weights are plastic, and Clyde is very, very hot, so I'm not sure how that'll go.
I think that yes, most people have a healthy fear of Clyde, and for good reason.
Yeah, no one goes into a Clyde fight thinking it'll be an easy win.
Hopefully not. I mean, maybe someone has
It's-
thought that, but they probably figured out pretty quickly that that was not true. So,
they probably left in a pile of melted plastic.
yeah, no one wants to leave in a sand bucket, unfortunately. So, yeah, no, that I like you mentioned, I think that the field is super stacked, and I mean that doesn't mean that no one else has a shot, because you never know what's going to happen. I think that's one of my favorite things about combat robotics is it's really hard to predict. um, because I mean, even the best robots, things happen and things go wrong. So yeah, I'm excited for it. Is this are you planning on this being your only event this year, or are you planning on trying to get into other events?
I'm going to apply to every event this year. Um, the wait lists have been non-existent. Under the reg cap was really shocking to me, so I'm already signed up for March as well. Um, Maybe that'll continue into April. I hope so I can get in again. But I'm going to be trying super hard this year to get that qualification, but as much as I can, learn as much as I can about what breaks and fix it.
Well, I mean, I know that a number of folks suggested you as a guest on the show. So clearly there's people that believe in Anubis and, really like it and want to see it do well.
Yeah, I was a little surprised, like me yapping about my robot that breaks on Discord. Um, but I think it's finally getting to a point where it's doing the thing that it's designed to do. It's winning a couple of fights. I'm working out some of these like electrical gremlins, some of these smaller inconveniences.
What do you think is for you, because it sounds like this is your first robot. So, I mean, you haven't been building for years and years, but what do you personally find the most challenging part of robot building? Because everybody has their thing.
Most challenging part for me is I'd say it's like the last 10% of a build. the first 90% is the easiest 10%, they say, or something like that. It's getting all those final dimensions, final details down, making sure all your configs are in weight. And it's sometimes I can get caught up in those little details, and it takes me a really long time to get the bot finished. But I think those small little garnishes are what makes the bot function well.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that most of the builders I know would probably agree with that. So, well, I mean, I'm super excited to see how this event plays out as always. I have no predictions at this point because I think that it's always wide open, but I'm really excited to, see what Anubis does. So, best of luck in the event for sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
It'll be so fun. Even if I get eliminated in round two, it's going to be a great time chatting with all these amazing builders, fighting and watching all these amazing bots.
Yes, as always, I'm jealous that I'm not going to be there, but I hope everybody has a great time and sees what their bots can do. But for people watching, please make sure that you stay tuned. There's so much more to come, and watch Anthony and Anubis and see what they do at this event.
Thank you for having me.
All right, and we are back. And as I mentioned at the top of this show, we are going through all of the weight classes, and I always like to get a little representation from every weight class, just so we can kind of get some different thoughts. And I'm really excited for this segment because Nelson, I mean, Grim Reaper has been, I think, a pretty good staple in NHRL for a while. I know you're still fairly new, but I mean, like, it's a very recognizable robot. So, but yeah,
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I wanted to have you on because multiple people said, "Hey, this is the event that Grim Reaper is going to qualify," and so
Oh, okay.
I wanted to get your thoughts on that because a lot of people certainly think that that's what's going to happen.
Well, so I was actually thinking about this the other day, saying, like I've gone, like I said, I think I'm coming up on like March or May of 2023 was my first event. And Grim Reaper 3 and I guess 12 have both gone through many iterations, and it's been sort of a learning experience. There's been a lot of it's changed. Yeah, people see the outside of it and they don't think, oh, it's the same bot. But internally it's probably gone to 3 or 4 iterations. So I'm pretty excited about this new one because I think I've taken care of the weak spots. So if I win, if I qualify, that's great. I'm there to have fun. Honestly, it's really what it's all about.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that like with this theme, I think it's a really fun theme. And that's I think that's for me what I've noticed people gravitate towards as they see a
Mhm.
bot with like a theme or like a concept that really gets them. And I think that it's, a lot of fun, obviously. Where did you come up with the idea for Grim Reaper, and also why like that style of robot?
Well, so I'm not sure if you know this, but our family is huge into Halloween. So Halloween is a passion of ours. We compete every year in our decorations for our house. And this past year we actually won first place in our town for our decorations. So Halloween's in our blood. Um, so that's kind of the naming of things kind of came from there. As far as the aesthetics, the shape of it, a good friend of ours who used to compete, Will and Adrian from Team 746. They used to have ground control with a 3 pounder. Will said to me, he's like, corners are bad. You don't want corners on your bot. Or I'm like, I can get rid of the corners. That's it. And that's kind of what originally made me think, okay, I got the round shape. Originally, it was going to be a lifter bot. I don't know if people knew that. But then I went to my first event and stuff like that. I said, oh, wait a minute, I want to do an undercutter. That's what I want.
Well, I mean, we've seen that style of bot be pretty effective. I mean, with like, what Kablooey Tango was able to do in the past and, some other robots that have done very well with that design. Um, Kind of talk a little bit more because you said the different iterations and things like that. I mean, you really have done a lot of work on the robot. What are some of the more specific things that you've done that you feel have made it more successful?
Sure. So the original Grim Reaper, the 3 pound version, it was a complete 3D printed body. And in external, if so, it was like a nylon, glass fiber nylon. Because just reading through the forum, though, this is what you got to use. And then I wrapped the UHMW shield around it, and sort of anchored it in sort of not the greatest way. And once, after my first battle, like I got the whole chassis actually like cracked on me. So someone grabbed the weapon and tossed me up in the air. Like, okay, second thought. So I started bringing TPU into it. And at that point, that's when last year I brought in the 12 pound version. And I'm like, okay, I got to get into the aluminum. I got to get into the bigger materials. So Grimmer with 12 pound is mainly aluminum underneath the hood. Like I said, this version coming into February 1st, so we'll have some steel reinforcements. Um, and then 3 pound Grim is actually going to be a miniaturized version of 12 pound. So it's got the same internal structure, just literally I took the CAD and I shrunk everything down, and then tweaked it from there. So I'm very hopeful for these guys. Um,
Yeah, I mean that's awesome. And you're like with 12 pound, I mean, you do, from what I've heard from everybody else, I mean, I've never tried to build a 12 pounder at this point myself, but like you have to step up your game because these hits are going to be so much harder because it's a different weight. And
mhm.
so while TPU is like a heck of a thing, and I've had a lot of luck with it myself, you still have to kind of step it up a little bit with the robots that you're facing.
Yeah, yeah, especially after the first version of 12 pound Grim. Even that chassis was the 1/4 inch aluminum was bent in the front. It was still functioning, but it was definitely off.
Yeah, for sure. Now I'm curious from your perspective, like with the lineup and the robots that are entered for 12 pounds for this event. And I'm asking this question to everybody because I just love to hear that piece of it. But is there any robot that you would really love to face that maybe you think is going to be a good or fun matchup for you? Or is there anybody that you're like, that one can stay away from me?
Well, you know what? I've there's definitely ones that you sort of look at and you're sort of scared of. I mean, when I first saw going up against Maximizer, I was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? This is like worst nightmare. Um, and that was also when I busted his weapon um shaft. So it was kind of it was kind of a mix of emotions right there. But it's I want another shot at I think Psycho is going to be there. So he took me out of teams. So I got into the first round of the teams, and then and it was up against him. So so I want another shot at that. But people like Zach and Promhita, he and I go back and forth. We're always going head to head. We seem to be trading punches here. So I'm always looking forward to a fight against Jack.
Yeah, and that's a very good bot too. Well, so Psycho and Promhead are both very good robots. So
Yeah,
I would love to see it because I mean, especially with the improvements, I can only imagine how great of a matchup that would be.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it'll be good. I think it's also Caldera. That's another one. Glenn actually lives pretty close to me. Um, and but that was another one that he had he he definitely injured me, and like he was part of the reasons for my one of my improvements. But he was an example of someone who couldn't get through the shield, which that was kind of a good indication to me that I was going in the right direction with the 12 pound bot.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, like you and Glenn have had similar past, just in the sense that, he had the smaller caldera and then decided to scale it up to a 12 as well. I mean, do you anticipate that more people who have only competed at the 3 pound level are going to see that as something that they should do, like a path that they should take?
I think so. I mean, it's honestly, I enjoyed. I didn't enjoy the financial part of it, but I enjoyed the sort of the smaller group. I think we definitely feel it feels more family-like at that level, just because there's less of you. So you sort of at when you have 96 bots, it's like, oh my God, there's so many people to, and you try to get, it's like I don't even know who's here. I'm not even sure who's who's fighting. Even trying to find the bot, it's like, does anybody know where this bot is? So I think a 12 pound I find pretty enjoyable because it's also the best. Like you get the big bot box, but you still have smaller bots. So it's like the best. I think someone had said to me it's the best bot to box ratio that you can ask for. Um, so yeah, no, it's a lot of it's a fun level, and I hope to see more people at 12.
Now, I have to ask you this question because when I like when I like a theme and stuff like that, I'm always like, okay, are there going to be more? Like, are you pretty sold on sticking with this Grim Ripper and like that style of robot, or have you had other ideas of different robots that you might want to do that also kind of have that spooky theme?
Oh, no, we definitely have. I definitely have some things in the idea bank. Nothing sort of, but I do want to try different styles. I mean, everyone's got verts. I definitely would want to try a vert at some point. A lot of times the name comes first, so I definitely have some names that I'm like, oh, I'll be listening to a song. I'm like, I'd make a great bot name for a Halloween bot. I don't know if you know my son has a 3 pound bot, Trick or Beater. Um, so it's the same Halloween theme. So I'm excited for that one because he's done a complete redesign. It's not even the same bot. It's 100% different. So but we'll see. We'll see.
Well, I love it. As somebody who thoroughly enjoys the month of October myself every year, I'm always excited to see what you've got and you're bringing to the table. So I think it'll be a fun event. 12 pounds, as they say, seems to be the biggest toss up, where you never know what's going to happen, because 12s are, physics no longer apply. um, but yeah. Now, kind of last question. I know it may be tough to say at this point, but especially given that the reg caps just haven't been the same way as they have in the past, are you planning on coming to multiple events this year, or is that still kind of up in the air?
I'll definitely be coming to multiple events. Typically the way it works is we do the first half of the year is bots, and then the second half of the year is we get into Halloween because we have a lot of build time, prep time. Um, I did go to championships, sort of helping out some other teams, but um, yeah, no, I definitely want to be to go to multiple times as much as my family will allow. Gets busy. It gets, I have 3 boys, so it gets busy. But we're trying to carve out time.
For sure. Yeah, I don't doubt that a bit. But I think everybody's going to be excited. For those that are obviously rooting for you, I'm sure they're all crossing your fingers that you do qualify, but we'll see what happens on February 1st. So,
Absolutely.
for if you're watching, please stay tuned. There is more to come. We've still got to cover 30 pounds. And yeah, just excited about the event. All right, everyone. So now it is time to get into the 30 pounders. And first of all, before I get into my next guest, I promise you all, this is not a Halloween episode. It is January. Even though we were talking about bots with spooky names, this is not a Halloween episode. So we're going to talk a little bit about Ghoul with Paul Tortorici here, which was a bot that debuted in October when it was Halloween, and is coming back to round one of NHRL 2025. So excited to have you and talk about your bot.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, definitely. It's my understanding looking back, Ghoul was new for October. What inspired you to make this bot specifically? And for you, what was it about going with more of a like spooky look and name and all of that?
So, well, I had Smack-A-Lantern before, which is my first robot, which was a four-wheel drive. It kind of started as like a drill bot. It was like literally made out of Home Depot parts, like as budget could get. Um, I built that and I just kind of liked the spooky theme. I was like, there's only so many ways that I could decorate a metal box and make it look interesting. So I was like, you know what? I painted it orange. I'm like I'm gonna make it a pumpkin. And I kind of just stuck with that. I realized the limitations of that bot. I only ran that bot starting out last year in the new bots event. So I realized early on the limitations of just buying sheet metal and welding it together and just throwing a couple of gearboxes in there. And but I did take what I learned from that bot and I moved that into Ghoul. And I started changing Smack-A-Lantern so many times that it was like, all right, it would be it started as the drill bot, then it had a drum on it, then it got a really giant drum, which is the weapon that I currently have on Ghoul. And I just changed it so many times that I'm like, okay, I think I'm gonna leave Smack-A-Lantern as like another little fun thing that I could like bring back eventually, and I'm just gonna start fresh with something that Smack-A-Lantern was kind of silly. Ghoul's still a little bit silly its theming, but I do seriously want to compete with it. So I think that's why I brought about Ghoul. I needed to make something simple and easy for me to make and cheap because I'm not a team. I'm one dude. I mean, I have an old job, but it's very expensive still. So if you really got down and looked at how Ghoul goes together, it's like very, very simple. So that's kind of how it came about. I just wanted to make a fresh bot with everything I learned from Smack-A-Lantern.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Ghoul looked pretty good in October. Unfortunately, when you got into the quarterfinals, you were up against Ares, which is just a pure killer. What have you done since then to try and, get it ready for this event, and moving forward for
Right.
2025?
I mean, like that was I had no questions in my head what was going to happen when I went up against Ares. I was so happy when you bring a new robot in, especially in the 30-pound bracket, especially since I'm such a new builder. I know how it's going to go. I don't ever it's funny you see people in the comments like, what does this guy think he's doing with it? But I don't have those delusions in my head. So going into it, I was very happy to, make it past Kazaa, who did amazing this in championships with both bots running. I was actually on their team, and I'll be on their team um, for this event coming up. I had no delusions about what would happen against Ares. So I learned so much from that event. And actually that fight with Ares, even though it was I think it was something ridiculous, like 30 seconds, but I learned so much from that fight. I mean, I got hit into the roof, but when I landed, a lot of people think I was dead when I landed, but no, I kept running. It wasn't until that weapon on weapon exchange that it died. And all of the problems I had throughout that day, I think I fixed. So I'm ready to go into this next event and see what else breaks and fix that. And that's kind of where I'm going to go with this. And by the end of the year, I have something that I really want to try and qualify and do well with.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that that's important. I hear a lot of people, and I mean, I've done this myself, like jokingly, but, saying, I don't want to fight that robot because I know what's going to happen. But I mean, you learn so much from those experiences. And if you really want to qualify and you want to beat the best, you have to face the best and then learn from that and learn how to beat
Right.
them. So I think that's important.
Right, exactly. And I mean, especially in like the 30-pound bracket, there like really are no slouches. And like there's nothing that's like, not that there's slouches in the other weight classes, but the barrier to entry is, you know, it's so much different. Like you can buy a 3D printer and try it out, and there's other people that are there doing that exact same thing. And I think just coming from the position of kind of always being the underdog, I've managed my expectations. So any little bit that I get, I'm super pleased with.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a fairly small field from what I saw for this event. So, you know, you're probably going to face
Yeah.
just about everybody.
Yeah. And then I saw Chonky just kind of popped up in there, and I'm like, well, got to deal with that. But you know, I look at that and I'm like, I think most people like look at it and they're like, man, this that's going to be like really expensive. But like, I set myself up for these potential failures. I'm like, look, I'm not going to say that I'm definitely gonna, like you. Some people you can catch on fire, anything could happen. You can run into a wall, and like it it happens. But I set myself up in a way that it's like, okay, I have a relatively inexpensive bot. I have tons of spares. I'm probably going to be coming with 2 robots, so I'm like ready for anything that comes at me this time. I'm the most prepared I've ever been. I'll say that.
Well, that's good. Preparation ahead of the event is always super key. I'm curious. I know you mentioned Chonky. Are there any other 30-pounders that you would love to see how your bot does against them?
I heard some rumors about some fairly interesting types of 30 pound. I don't know if I don't want to like give anything away or anything like that, but I've heard some pretty interesting um 30 pounders maybe in the horizontal variety that could be coming to this. So I'm very interested to see if I will fight them. I would love to. I've been talking with Corey with synthesis a lot, and we've been talking back and forth, and like I would love to see how my bot does up against something like that, because I mean, like obviously, like I fought Emulsifier, which you know is a similar style bot with Smack a Lantern, and I saw how devastating that is, and I mean he just beat Emulsifier. Um, and I think it would be really interesting to see how I do against that. Probably not gonna go my way, but I want to see how I do so that I can fix what goes wrong. Like it's funny, like most people, I think most people are a little bit more cocky about it than me. I'm such a realist, so it's it's you know that's just how it is with me.
Yep, no, I understand. I'm the same way. But I'm also not, admittedly, I'm not a builder. I have built a robot, but I don't really consider myself that much of a builder. So I get, you
I
know,
mean,
not
if you could build a robot and get it through safety, I mean that's like 75% of it right there. And like I just don't know why I started in the 30-pound bracket. I don't know why that was my choice. So and now for this event, I'm actually one of my bots is in the 12-pound bracket too. So
oh,
that's going to be interesting. And I have plans for that to be a kit. So Gamma Ray in the 12-pound bracket is actually mine, but it's going to be driven by an 11-year-old. So that's going to be interesting too.
awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure that everyone's looking forward to it, really excited for it. And we're going to continue talking about 30 pounds here in the next segment. So for those that are fans of that weight class, you are getting plenty of it today. But thank you, Paul, and anybody who's watching, please keep watching for a little bit more. All right, we are back. And last but certainly not least, because, you know, Craig's a friend of the podcast, I have Craig Danby on here, not to talk about BattleBots, but to talk about Slamson, which I'm so psyched as a longtime fan of Slammo. This has got me all kinds of excited and giddy. So welcome back and excited to talk about this.
It's been a little while since I've been on the pod. I think last time I was talking about being Pete Abrahamson's like illegitimate son. So it's good to be back. And yes, this is my first NHRL like podcast. It's my first NHRL appearance since January of 2023. Yeah, I have built a 30-pound version of Slammo.
That is really exciting. As many know, when I decide to build robots, which is a terrible idea for me to do, I always model my robots, at least in part, after a battle bot that I really like a whole lot. And one of mine, my lifter Apple Turnover, was modeled after Slammo, even though they look very different. But Slamson actually resembles Slammo quite a
You're very
bit.
kind. Yeah, I've got him here. Even down to my zip tie haircut, and big single googly eye. Hopefully it performs like Slammo has been performing, and we'll see. So yeah, quite heavy.
30
30
pounds
pounders are
is
quite heavy. I don't know what I'm
yeah.
so it can sit in my office in here quite nicely, but at the same time, I was like, oh, I'll just reach down and pick it up. It's like it's not beetle weight. I have to like heave it up a little bit. So time to go back to the gym, I think.
What I mean, I asked the question, what made you decide to make a 30-pound version of Slammo? The real question should be, why wouldn't you make a 30-pound version of Slammo? But
I,
I'm
I've
just
had
curious.
kind of like I've been planning it for probably 5 years, and the plans have evolved based on like how Slammo itself has evolved, and with BattleBot still on hiatus and not really knowing what's going on with that, we kind of thought, well, I've got a bunch of motors and stuff and extra time. Why not try and build one? So usually what I do for NHRL is I build the robot on the plane on the way there. But I actually finished Slam Sun back in October. So it's been built and tested and been running for a little while now. So I very nearly went in for the October NHRL, but I'm glad I left it because I've only just finished my anti-horizontal spinner setup, and I've just seen the list of people going. I'm like, I'm gonna need that. So let's find out.
Yeah, and speaking of people going, honestly, like, I mean, not that the 30-pound field there's ever a ton of robots, because it's usually a fairly short list, but I mean there's not a lot. I think the last time I saw there's maybe 9-ish robots or something like that, but that includes some pretty heavy hitters, including Synthesis 30. I mean, I believe in the power of Slammo. As you know, I love lifters, but what is your plan to kind of combat some of those heavy hitters?
Well, I've just done face-offs, and I can't talk about it, but I also fought a very big vertical spinner, and I will probably go down the same route like I tried with that, which is I have very thick armor, but it's quite small as a 30-pounder. It's about the size of a 12-pounder, but it's got kind of heavyweight armor. So I think I can take a few hits. So the weapon isn't slow. It's like it does a full 180 in under half a second. So, and it can pick up about 150 kilos. So maybe about 280, 290 pounds. So um, take a hit, throw them around, take a hit, throw them around. It's pretty quick. It's not quite as quick as the big guy, but it's still pretty quick for a robot of its size. So yeah, Brazil wheels to give me much grip, and I found somebody's CAD where they have the little spiky wheel things to go with their Brazilian wheels. Thank you, Brandon. So they are also on, so I've got grip. And then I heard some story about perhaps they might be changing the floor to steel. So just in case, I've thrown some magnets in the plans as well. So we shall see. But but yeah, the plan is just to kind of just to tank as much hits as possible and flip as much as possible and hopefully stay working for as long as possible.
I mean, that's always a good plan to go off of for sure. Now I've definitely heard some just various rumors of that, like it sounds like hopefully you're going to try and come to more than one event this year.
Possibly. There's a talk that between Jason, who's the Tennessee event organizer, Jason. He was one of your nominated awards this last year. We are planning on doing a video where we build two 12-pound robots as a cluster bot for NHRL. So we're going to do like a build 1 day build of two robots in his workshop in Tennessee, and then bring them up to Norwalk as well. So, and then my brother is talking about coming over and competing with his 30-pound robot at some point. So, can't let him go by himself, you know. So, yeah, there's a possibility that there could be more than one arrival or trip from Texas, which is where I am now, up to Norwalk. So.
I mean, I've heard that people from Texas have had some success at NHRL, so
Yeah, they won't let me forget it. So I think if I don't do well, I'm not allowed to come back. So they kick me out of Texas.
well, hopefully that doesn't happen. Um,
I just want to have fun.
exactly. Fun is what it is all about. I, I mean, aside from that, like, because I know we talked about the field a little bit. Is there anyone in the field that you were like, hey, I think it would be really fun to fight that robot?
Um, so somebody who's just added themselves to it is the I don't know if I'm pronouncing it. It's like Chonkv, the
Oh,
full horror shell spinner. And yeah, I'd love to have a go at that. They got added. They are the 10th bot added to this list. Obviously, Synthesis 30 is a big one. But they're the names that instantly kind of recognition from watching pretty much every single NHRL. So there's some people, I think some quite a few new guys as well. So I'll be honest, I just like fighting my robots. I like playing with my toys. So I'll take on anybody that they let me fight, and so long as my robot is still working, I'll keep fighting until they tell me I can't fight anymore. So
yeah, well, that's exciting to hear about. So, if depending on who you ask, some people will be like, it's pronounced chunky or chunky or whatever the case may be. However it's pronounced, it's an
that
awesome
thing,
robot.
it is fantastic. I always love to see a good. Well, I mean, it's a shuffle bot. It's a full body spinner. It looks particularly well made. Every time I've looked at it, it's like, "Ah, that looks pretty cool." And I've not seen it in person yet, so I'm hoping to sort of go see it and get up close and personal. And like, hey, maybe this is as cool as it looks. So, but yeah, the guys seem like they're pretty cool. Jameson seemed to like them, so that's a good sign. So.
Yes, always good to get that JMO thumbs up of approval. But yeah, well, I think that this I mean I've probably said it at least 4 times in this episode, but like this is going to be a fun event. I'm really excited for it. For people that don't already know, it's February 1st. Clear your schedule because it's going to be a great day of robot fighting, and I'm really excited to see what people bring, how they do. Going to probably be some just amazing fights as always.
Hopefully.
Yes.
I'd like to get my first. I'd like to get my first win. I haven't had I've had 2 buys, which technically count as wins, but I would very much like to get an in-arena win at Norwalk, and then I've done that everywhere. Then, so that'd be good.
Fingers crossed. But for those
Gotta
that
happen
are
at some point. Right?
Yeah, exactly. For those that are watching, please make sure that you like, subscribe. Let's get to 1,000 subscribers. We didn't do it in 2024, but I believe in 2025. So let's do it. Make sure that you keep watching, keep supporting combat robotics, keep supporting cats. Yeah, Tom had to make an appearance, so hi Tom.
Sorry.
But yeah, keep watching and we'll see everybody next time on the show.